Welcome to
Tamarindo Podcast.
Hosted by me, Brenda Gonzalez, a fitness coach, political nerd, and nonprofit capacity builder.
And me, Delsy Sandoval, a Guatemalan American licensed therapist and passionate creativity advocate. Together, we're here to uplift our community through powerful conversations with changemakers, creatives, and healers.
Each week on the pod, we talk politics, culture, and personal development. Listeners call Tamarindo the Advocacy and Self-Love Podcast. Vámonos! Let's start the show! Hi Tamarindo listeners, today's episode of Tamarindo is a mini episode to hold you over. It is a conversation with Karla Cornejo Villavicencio, an Ecuadorian American writer and the author of the National Book Award finalist, The Undocumented Americans. Her work focuses on race, culture, and immigration and has appeared in the New York Times, The New Yorker, Vogue, Elle, and NPR. She joins Tamarindo to talk about her debut novel, Catalina, which was longlisted for the National Book Award for Fiction. I'll tell you a little bit more about Catalina. Catalina is the story of Catalina Uturralde, a wickedly wry and heartbreakingly vulnerable student at an elite college, forced to navigate an opaque past, an uncertain future, tragedies on two continents, and the tantalizing possibilities of love and freedom. This is a delightful conversation. I really enjoyed Karla telling me a little bit about this fantastic little book. I also want to read you what Ira Glass has to say about this book. Diabolically charming and magnetic, about once every page of Catalina, I found myself pausing to marvel at some incredibly breathtaking sentence. I honestly don't know how you write like this. I don't know how you make something that feels so urgent and driven and alive. I enjoyed the hell out of this little exploding geyser of a book. That's Ira Glass. I love the book, and I'm excited for you all to hear my conversation with Karla. So welcome, Karla Cornejo Villavicencio. It's so wonderful to meet you this way. Thank you for stopping by Tamarindo.
Thank you for having me.
We're here to talk about your new book. It's called Catalina. It's got this gorgeous cover. I'd like to hear from your own words. How do you describe this book?
Let's see. I would describe it kind of like a summer song. I know we're in fall right now, but kind of like a summer anthem. Even that's the feeling and the vibe I wanted the book to have. I wanted it to be something that felt cathartic. I think especially for kids of immigrants, people who sort of have felt like outsiders, especially in sort of elite spaces. I wanted something that didn't make them feel the pain even deeper. I wanted something that felt cathartic and cleansing, the way that singing your favorite song at the top of your voice at a concert, the way that feels.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that way of describing this mood that this book paints. I'm someone that went to school undocumented, so I very much identified with that aspect of Catalina, of just kind of this uncertainty about what the future has for me. And of course, this is that last year of college is everybody, right? Everybody's very uncertain. But I think what this book really illustrates is how that is so much more uncertain when you're undocumented. And I want to know, for people that are unfamiliar with that experience of being undocumented, what do you hope folks take away when reading this book?
Honestly, I just hope that they have kind of access to the mind of another undocumented person, and that just expands their imagination a little bit into understanding what the lives of other undocumented people might be like. Maybe they never had a curiosity about the interior lives of undocumented people, of all things. A lot of American citizens view immigrants as at the absolute bottom of the social caste. And, the idea that I was dedicating this whole book to the thoughts of a 20-year-old undocumented girl. Yes, she was at Harvard, but what's inside her head is not, I think is the thoughts of a smart and funny 20-year-old. There's lots of daydreaming about boys. There's lots of revenge fantasies. There's lots of thinking what she would wear to parties, imagining herself in a Dongomar music video. These are all thoughts that I wanted to kind of elevate by giving it the treatment of like literature.
And getting us, I mean, I know you've talked about the cover of the book, and it's an eye, and we're really kind of occupying the mind of this 20-something-year-old and all of her thoughts and all of her observations. I just thought that was a really fun way to get to see your voice, right, and your point of view. And I want to talk a little bit about what it felt like to write this book, because I think it's very fun, it's very electric, as well as complex, and there's just so much going on here. But also, the takeaway is that it was fun. So I want to know, it was a fun read. Tell me what it was like to embody this character and to write this book.
Well, I wanted it to be fun because it does cover a lot of dark topics, right? The disenchantment of aging in this country undocumented, the disconnect you feel from your own culture when you're someone that's made up of multiple cultures, like loneliness that your family doesn't understand your experience. But again, I don't, when I reach out to art, it's to feel less lonely in the world, and it's not to re-trigger or re-traumatize myself. It is to feel radicalized or to feel comforted or whatever. So I wanted it to be fun. And I think that itself is kind of like a transgressive choice, I grew up at a time where the Dreamer movement was sort of launching, and it was very much in the public eye, the way that it isn't now. But there would be images of kids in caps and gowns doing sit-ins in congressional offices. And they were so brave, and every time they came out with their real names, it was absolutely shocking. And a lot of those, young people are adults now, like full-fledged adults, and they're still dreamers. And I also wanted to write a little bit about that experience, because I don't think it's a spoiler, but at the end of the book, I don't change Catalina's legal status. I don't give her citizenship. I don't give her, I don't even bring up DACA, which historically is what would have happened a few years after the book ends, because I wanted to show that this girl, her life, she keeps on living, that citizenship isn't what ties up her story. That felt like an important point to make.
Yeah, no, I see that. I'll just share an anecdote. So as I shared, I was also undocumented during my college experience. Recently, I was invited to speak to this group of, they're all mostly white women, mostly white, older women. It was sort of like a women's club in Whittier. And I was invited by the one of two Latinas to come and speak. And she really wanted me to talk to these ladies about your experience and, let them see about immigrants being people, right? So I talked about my experience. I talked about that fact that sure, maybe I was able to become a citizen, I was able to get married, but there's so many people that were part of this movement that are full-on adults that own homes or whatever. They've built their life here, and they're still living with this crushing uncertainty. And at the end of the talk, a woman pulled me aside and she said, I've been battling with this inconclusive battle with cancer. It comes, it goes, it comes, it goes. And to me, the most crushing part about having this issue was the uncertainty. It wasn't so much that you have cancer, you don't, it's the uncertainty. And so she thanked me for helping her see that there's the uncertainty is the crushing part. And I saw that coming through with a book when we finally see Catalina get sort of, depressed and get crushed by the uncertainty at a point in the story. So I think that's at least one part of the takeaways that I took from this story. But I want to go back to who Catalina is and who she isn't. I mean, and you sort of alluded to it a little bit, it is the story about an undocumented young girl who she went to Harvard, but she's not a model immigrant, right? She's messy, she's chaotic at times, she's kind of mean even, And I want to know a little bit about why does Catalina refuse to be the poster child of immigration?
Uh, I can't speak for Catalina, but I think that we have this in common, this sort of resistance. And for me, it is just muscle memory. I was a kid who resisted the impositions of others telling me who I was. I was like, think about it. I was born in Ecuador. I came here. I had two changes of caregivers before I was 5 years old, part of two entirely different families. Then, I come to America, I adapt. I'm always feeling like an outsider. Hold on. Can you remind me? Because I tend to ramble what the question was so that I make sure that I answer it.
Yeah, I think we're kind of exploring Catalina's resistance to being a poster child of immigration, and maybe, of course, maybe you seeing that reflected in your own experience.
Sure. So, always feeling like an outsider, feeling like a literal like alien. And my parents would also be like, they would call me an extraterrestre, because I was also weird to them. As an adult, I found out that I may be on the spectrum, and that explains why there's always an outsiderness and a feeling of I really come from another planet. And so, in some ways, Catalina and I believe, are constitutionally unable to follow the script, to follow the narrative. And that sort of inability is also very much tied to just the most important thing to me, and definitely to Catalina, is independence, agency, the ability to make her own choices. And so I think being a poster child, you're handed a script. You have to talk about certain things. You also have to divulge a lot about yourself. Like, Americans do require performance of immigrants to explain why they came here, why they sort of deserve to stay in the country. There's an expression of like tremendous gratitude at being in the country. I think when faced with this script, Catalina chooses an option that is just like bodily in her, which is like, screw this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, because when folks think about the model immigrant, they want us to be grateful, they want us to be humble, they want us to be quiet, and these are all things that Catalina is not, which is why why I adored this character. I also like the way you write about men. I related to, like, it felt to me that Catalina was more driven by the sense of conquest than actual like wanting. For example, I feel like she doesn't want Nathaniel. She wants Nathaniel to want her. That's what she wants. She wants to be wanted. She wants to be desired. I thought it was a lot of fun. So can you tell me a little bit about Catalina, how she sees desire?
Well, Catalina is very aware of her status in the world, which is as an object of desire, and in general of just being an object. Part of it is, she's very smart. She's looking around. She's reading the way power dynamics work. She's really interested in power, right? And I think her desire in the novel is tied to power. And so, hold on, remind me again the question.
Yeah, just kind of thinking about how Catalina sees desire and how that sort of drives the way she interacts with men.
Yeah, and so I think that there's a scene in the book where her first time meeting Nathaniel, she asks him to tie her shoe because she says her dress is too short, so she can't kneel. And I think it is such an interesting moment because Nathaniel is like, what? But he also kneels. And Catalina is aware of that power that she has as a girl to whom so many narratives are imposed. Girl, sort of this like Manny Pixie dream girl treatment of like this quirky girl is going to change my life. Certainly sexualized, the spicy Latina. She feels all of these narratives. She's also a very well-read girl, and she listens to a lot of indie music. So she knows what sensitive men, what they like, how they sound when they write about a woman they like. And she can kind of imitate them. She admires them. She like loves Philip Roth, but she also hates Philip Roth because she has seen the way Philip Roth writes about like Latina young women, and she has felt humiliated by it. But there's a sense of play with Catalina where her way of, saying screw you to this like imaginary room of men that she's constantly fighting. I would say who's like in that room, like probably her grandfather, her father, who she doesn't know because he died when she was a baby, but she could project so much onto him because it's a blank slate. And so she's constantly engaging with the world by thinking about her and men and the power dynamics inherent in being like an undocumented girl in this big scary world, where she also has this great power, which is that she is a very pretty object, and she knows that. And so what I do is make her just constantly aware of what's going on. She does things, she moves through the world, but I think what makes Catalina a little eerie is that she knows the scripts. Now, she's also 20, so she's wrong a lot. Sometimes she misreads things. Sometimes she forgoes a moment of sincere connection in order to do a bit or make a joke or evade somebody. So she's not always right. But I think it does drive her to want to experiment with power in that way.
There's a really fun scene where she allows herself to sort of daydream what it would be like to have Nathaniel like have a baby with him, and he adores her, and he's just like this perfect husband and perfect scene. But the way that scene ends, that daydream ends, is that she kills him, which I think is hilarious. That was really fun. Tell me a little bit about, I guess, the way that Catalina sort of, there's sort of streams of consciousness. There's many moments in the book where it moves away from plot, and it's really more just kind of like the way she's thinking. Tell me a little bit about that. Like how, I think it was, again, another fun vehicle, another fun read.
Thank you. I think daydreaming has a bad reputation about, it's something girls do, thinking about like pop stars, but girls and children and people who ordinarily don't have like the agency to do what they want with their lives or to do what they want with their bodies. They're, under the care, like people whose rights are limited. There's always ways to resist. And even if your physical reality is constraining, you can find a way to resist in your mind. And so Catalina does this, and one way she does this is daydreaming. There's a daydreaming she does about Nathaniel where she's sort of trying different things out. She's like, how do I feel about him? How do I feel about him if we have a baby? Well, okay, we can, but like I want him to be looking at me the whole time, not the baby. She's like negotiating all of these things in her head. But as she's daydreaming, she's also trying to ask questions about why. She's doing a lot in her daydreaming. There's another daydream she has about Henry Kissinger, where he's on a treadmill. Like tiny little Henry Kissingers are in her head, and they're on a treadmill, and they generate body they generate power for her body. And she's like, that's why I'm such a good flirt. That's why I'm always going to the parties. And she's like always calling out to Henry Kissinger. And it seems to me that that's similar to the Nathaniel daydreams, which is like trying to use her mind as a little prison to put someone else in. And then she's interested in having some sense of power. There is very little power in her life that she can access. And so I think what she does with her own thoughts and in her own mind is really interesting, because I think that's a space where she can openly resist what society is telling her.
Mm-hmm. All right, lastly, I want to talk a little bit about Catalina's relationship with her grandfather. I mean, I think in the first half of the book, I really get the impression that Catalina is confident, she's tough, she's impenetrable. But then we see how easily her grandfather can make her cry. And we see how much her grandmother depends on her as a shield from the wrath of this man, especially as he's grappling with grief. So can you tell us a little bit more about her relationship with her grandfather and how that shapes who she is?
Yeah, her grandfather takes Catalina on almost as a student. And I think they have a relationship that's almost cult-like, cult of two people. And he's the teacher and she's the student. And he teaches her chess. He teaches her extradition laws of various Latin American countries and like Belgium. He teaches her how to pick a lock. He teaches her what he thinks she needs to know to be in the world. And as Catalina grows up, he also teaches her ideas of revolution, and he teaches her ideas about resistance, and he teaches her ideas about, Latin American history that has such a deep history of authoritarianism and attempts at collective rule and attempts at, just this rich history of power imbalance and resistance and revolution and all of that. And as she grows up, she starts saying no. She starts fighting back. She starts saying, are the rules that he taught me about chess, like, are those chess rules even real? Like, did he kind of make up a game of chess? And when I play with a stranger, like, I'll find out that these are not even the rules. She starts questioning his authority, which feels developmentally appropriate for a 20-year-old. But I think that you sort of see him be both things to her, both a teacher and a hero, and the person that she gets most of her information about the world from. And you see that she's also drawn to other figures like that. Like there's a reporter, a journalist from Columbia who comes to Harvard, and by the time he arrives, she's had like hundreds of hours of daydreams about him. And he's a similar personality. He's like a strong man. And I think that you see the appeal of a strong man, charismatic, whatever. And you see how Catalina kind of her identity is created through her engagement with this strongman figure, like through their fights, through the moments where she finds it enchanting, like through all of those things. I think her personality is created.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us and talking to us about this book. I'll just leave you with this, because I think the part of the book where I laughed the hardest was with her thinking about daydreaming about her dad and her parents, and maybe her dad. What if like her dad wanted to be a DJ? I thought that was really, really funny.
Thank you. No, look, some of my best friends are DJs, and there's some very cool DJs out there. But no, this was definitely a moment where Catalina was like, again, my dad could be anything. Like, what if he was like Pablo Escobar's best friend? Or what if he was just like a struggling DJ who got no jobs, It's a moment for her. It's a moment.
And I find it hilarious because my husband's a DJ. So
Drag him.
just for fun on the side. But I was like, this is hilarious. Well,
DJ humor.
Yes, DJ humor. I really related to that. Thank you so much for spending time with us. And we'll make sure to tell everybody where they can pick up the book. It is beautiful, literally from the cover and in the end what's inside. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Tamarindo Podcast is Brenda Gonzalez and Delsy Sandoval. We are also the show's executive producers. Jeff Ricards wrote our theme song. Sonoro Media's Karina Riveroll provides production support, and Cliva Torres edits our episodes for YouTube. The best way to support our work is to rate and review Tamarindo or share an episode with a friend. Get in touch with us at tamarindopodcast.com.